Starting, I'm gonna do the countdown if everyone's ready. Oh, I am ready. So, 3, 2, 1, go. Anything went wrong? I can restart. And Roost, I can't hear you if you're trying to say something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. I guess my thing broke. Anyway, hello. So, we got some loading here at the start. First thing we do have a boss fight. Just like every other game, right?
Yeah,
but
every game starts with a boss fight.
And as a matter of fact, we're starting with the final boss. So, hey, might as well, right?
Yep.
But for this quote-unquote final boss, it's just like a sort of fast little battle to give you the ideas of the basics for the battle system. All you do is spam these lightning strikes at him over and over again. Once he gets to half health, there's a little cutscene. And then he starts using a scarier move called Umbral Vice. It's the only thing you'll have to watch out for. And each one takes almost half your HP, so if two happen in a row, you can die. So we're just going to spam these and try and stay alive until he's dead. So that Umbral Vice left us with pretty good HP, so looks like we're safe to keep going lightning.
Yeah.
But we got the shield would give us full HP, so now we're totally... And that really is all it is to this fight. Leave it to Marathon Luck to give us 3 Umbral Vices.
Yeah, so the first phase was perfect. I didn't get hit once, which is something I'm not sure I've ever seen before. And then I get 3 Umbral Vices.
Right. Well, you're guaranteed 1, so you got 2 extra, right?
Yeah, extra.
So now we're flying with our other main character, Noel, and we're just going to be spamming focus bolts now. And the big mechanic behind this fight is Chaos Moment's chasing after you, shooting attacks at you, and you dodge the attacks when they get close to you. And dodging the attacks wastes time, so you basically want to trigger your focus bolts early to stand still. And if you get interrupted, it looks like you lose ATB, but the focus bolts go off anyway, so you save time when you actually get interrupted. So the only real mechanic here is pushing triangle to trigger your string early, and you'll see he does that just like right now. And it keeps him standing still, gets the attacks early, and gets you interrupted, which is... But these are just 2 little scripted fights before anything else starts. As far as the story goes, you're just in Valhalla with Lightning, and Noel has arrived from the future, and Lightning is about to send him off on the story. But first, we have to fight the bad guy, Caius, currently in the form of Chaos Bahamut. It's not really a dangerous fight, although it looks dangerous with the HP. This fight is much safer than the previous.
You can still die.
Oh yeah. But that was acceptable time. So now with that, we're going to move on to the actual story. So I guess it's a little bit of a bait and switch like FF12, right? You start off with Rex, but actually Vaughn, start here with lightning, but actually Sarah is your main character.
Yeah, I guess you boulders.
Yeah. Ondor said that lightning committed suicide. I mean, wait, that's the wrong lie. Yes, that's the final boss down. So, did the person get time on? So now we just have to skip some command prompts and get acquainted with the controls and all this. There's a new mechanic added in this game from 13, which is jumping. So they put some debris on the ground for you to jump over. But now they introduce the actual battle system. So here we are on Pulse in New Bodom, and Noel has arrived with a meteor that brought some enemies. So we're just going to fight these enemies. These enemies are all pretty weak. It's just Nectons and Meo-Nectons. Nectons just take 3 ruins to kill, and then the Meo-Nectons can be staggered in 3 fires. So basically the goal is going to be hit some fires to stagger the Meo-Nectons and then kill the Nectons with normal commando strings. But this could also be a good time to introduce some of the basics of the battle system. So you'll see that there's 3 options available right now: auto battle, abilities, and item. And then there's another menu which pops up, which is the paradigm shift menu, which allows you to change which paradigms you're in. So the main mechanic behind this game is essentially the same as Final Fantasy 13, where you have different roles for different characters, or different roles for the same characters that you can switch between them. So you have Commando and Ravager right now. Commando is for just doing damage, and Ravager is for doing spells and increasing the chain gauge. The chain gauge is what you see in the upper right. And the chain gauge is going to be really important for beating a lot of bosses. But spells power the chain gauge, which makes them take more damage, and then Commando just does damage. So the next fight, we'll look at a good example of this. So we see there's 4 Nectons and a Meo-Necton. So we kill a Necton, make Sarah into a Ravager, and then she's going to hit the Meo-Necton with 3 spells, and those 3 spells will stagger the Meo-Necton, so he takes extra damage, and then everything will go down, because when you stagger, you take tons of damage. Yeah, these are all nice little fights just to get you acquainted with the battle. So one other little thing we're watching out here for is Phoenix Down drops at the end of the fights. It's random, but each Phoenix Down is worth 500 gil, and that goes towards the gil you need for a menu later on. So we're watching out for that. We've already gotten at least one I saw, but I didn't see any.
I've seen one. That one is.
Yeah, even one is nice.
As long as you get the one. Before.
This is just a set part of the game to try and get the player acquainted with the different paradigms. You can't even change the paradigms or anything yet, as they haven't really been formally introduced. But it's essentially 3 copies of the same fight, more or less, so it's pretty straightforward. But now that that's taken care of, we have a few story things we have to take care of now. So Noel is here from the future. He went to Valhalla, and then Lightning sent him back to here, and we're learning about paradoxes and artifacts, and we are going towards the place where these monsters came from. A meteor struck the ground, and so we're going to investigate. Along with Noel came Mog, who will be useful for a lot of things, but right now a really important function of him is being introduced, which is the Mog Clock. where the mod clock is that thing which just appeared on screen momentarily. That is what shows you how far you have until your encounter becomes aggressive, and then eventually when your mod clock times out, you are forced into the encounter. So mod essentially is what tells you when you're getting encounters. In 13, the encounters were all just fixed places, but here they appear and disappear. So it's going to be an important thing you have to watch out for when encounters appear, whether we can get away from them and how aggressive they are. So when mod clock is green, we're safe. When it's yellow, we have to run. See, so this is an aggressive encounter. We're trying to get away from it. And it looks like we have to fight it. It's a relatively small time loss, but really nothing you can do about it. Luckily, most of the monsters early on are relatively weak, and if you get an unlucky encounter like this, it's fine. Later on, you just have to, there's a mechanic we'll exploit to get away from these encounters, which is actually more of a time loss than this, but it's better than having to fight them or wait for a game.
We're not really suited to fight enemies fast, like random enemies fast. By a mechanic that will lose us a minute faster than fighting an encounter that would take a minute and a half.
Am I dreaming?
Or sometimes not even possible to fight them, like Yeomen. I'm not sure you're going to be killing them no matter what.
And die to them.
True, true. So we're just running through the area, picking up some chests along the way. We've got a Libra scope that we'll be using later, Phoenix Down, which we'll sell, a few other things. And then we have a boss. So now with this boss coming up, we can see some of the kind of ideas we'll be taking care of or taking advantage of in this game. So this is Gog Magog. And we are going to try and stagger him as quickly as possible, but we only have Sarah and Ravager. So no matter what we do, Noel's going to be trying to attack him. And you may notice already that Noel is jumping, and when he's jumping, he can get this swipe attack will stun him and lose you a good amount of time. So Zero is shifting between paradigms to try and keep Noel's feet on the ground when the swipe attacks come in. So we're using as much Ravager as we can and shifting to keep Noel on the ground. Eventually he gets staggered and we can kill him fairly quickly. But this essential idea we just saw is a pretty key theme we'll see throughout the whole run, which is use Ravagers to chain them as much as possible, and then once they're staggered, use Commandos to kill them. Looks like we got a little bit of an unlucky damage roll, took an extra attack, but otherwise that was fine. So now that Gog Magog is down, we can investigate the meteor, pick up some more chests. And this introduces the idea of artifacts. So once we've done this, we'll be running around New Bodom for a little bit, trying to pick up some key items for the story before we can come back here and leave New Bodom. But for now, it's mostly story progression.
Shouldn't we check it out, though? Give me a chance and I'll prove
So there's, I believe, 4 artifacts here. The first one is associated with a cat, and that's the first we're going to go after. So there's a suspicious cat over here. We have to chase the cat around a little bit until it ends up near the artifact.
Could have picked up the artifact.
Or there is only one artifact, but there's 3
Right.
editions, or I guess 4. So
It's the cat, the kid, the knife, and the mirror. And the mirror is the only actual artifact, right? I think is what you're saying. So we have a quick little menu here. I'll talk through it. It's going to go faster than I can talk through it, but we do it right here because opening the menu kind of makes you stop. And so we do it while we're in the air so that you don't stop. So the first thing we did was got some Ravager levels. we pretty much are going to almost entirely be using Ravagers throughout the entire run on our main characters. Commando is mostly used for buffering, which I'll introduce and talk about later. But for now, we set them to... We got some Crystarian levels for Ravagers to get them more abilities. And then we set the paradigms that we have 2 double Commandos and 2 double Ravagers. Double Ravagers for chaining and ATB refreshing, and then double Commando for using Commando effects and ATB refreshing. But we'll get to that shortly. He also got some... like I said, he got Ravager levels. He actually got more on Sarah than Noel. Like in the previous fight, Noel liked to jump a lot. You don't really control him, and so he likes to do strikes, for which he jumps, and spells, for which he doesn't jump. And so we actually stopped just short of getting Noel's first strike. So for this next fight, he won't have the ability to jump while he's in the Ravager paradigm. So we actually got him less levels than we could have, just to allow. But like I said, the idea is we're going to be using Ravagers to chain. So in this next fight, we'll start off with Commandos, get us some chain duration, and then switch to Ravagers, and then we'll chain the boss until he staggers, and then kill him with Commando. Like I said, a pattern we'll see pretty frequently. One other thing I mentioned is ATB refresh. So in the battle menu, there's your ATB charging, which as you wait, your ATB charges and gives you the ability to use your moves. It turns out every 12 seconds when you shift paradigms, it gives you a full charge of your ATB. And so we have doubles of both of the main paradigms so that we can shift, stay in the same paradigm, but get a full charge of our ATBs. And that saves a good amount of time on these fights. It saves time, and in some fights actually allows us to defeat the boss without dying. Like there are several fights where without ATB refreshing, it would be much...
It wasn't the artifact after all.
Are you losing your judgment?
But yeah, beyond that, we did one other thing, which is new to this game, where we set our paradigms, which is the same as in 13, but we also set the targeting AI for the paradigms, where you can set either normal, cross, or wide. Cross makes the AIs of the other characters in the party tend to focus on the same enemy, and wide tends to make them either focus on other enemies or focus on AoE spells if possible. So in the previous game, if you did 3 times Ravager, then you would get 3 times Ravager cross, no matter what you did. But now you can change that to be wide. And it turns out we want wide for most of our abilities, because you want to try and hit multiple enemies at once, and you want to try and use your high-level spells, which are AoE, as we'll be buffering those and giving us a lot of damage.
Now we just have to head for the gate.
I don't get it.
So just a few details about the battle mechanics.
Yeah, the wide for Ravager is also nice because
You want to take a moment to
if there
say
is
goodbye
only
to
one
the
enemy,
past?
it doesn't mean that they will use AoE attacks for nothing.
Okay.
AoE is smart enough that if there's one enemy, they will.
The gate
Um,
is where the meteorite fell. So
targeting,
we should
if,
head towards Cocoon, right?
You know, it must be strange to have it there.
except
always
for,
watching
like-
over you.
Yeah, it basically uses the best spells it can, and which spell is best depends on what you want to do, and it turns out we typically want to have
Keep a look
the
out.
wide
I will.
version of the spells.
You be careful too, Noel.
But now that we head out, we're going to pick up a few more chests. There's another Phoenix down up ahead, and then we fight Gog Magog again.
Going on here.
It's essentially the same fight, except he gets a inertial barrier, or I forget exactly what it's called, but
It's not every day
basically
to see
stops
me
from
drop
taking
so
most of his damage until he's staggered.
Even before
So
that,
we're basically,
everything's
instead
been
of shifting back and forth like last fight, we're just going to be sitting in our Ravager paradigms, spamming spells until he's staggered, and you guessed it, switch to our Commando paradigm to kill him. Oh yeah, causality barrier, that's it. So this is Gog Magog Beta, I think most people call him. So if you saw briefly, we're in dual casting, which means we're in Ravager. If you saw Sarah's spells, she actually had spells and strikes. Like I mentioned before, Noel can only use Blizzard. If we got him one more level, he'd have Frost Strike, and he would start jumping up to use Frost Strike, and that's not something we want to have happen. So we intentionally left him under-leveled, which is something we'll be doing multiple times. We're essentially only going to be getting Ravager levels on both of them until the very end. but sometimes we'll leave them short for specific. But yeah, that was it. Chain him until he staggers, and then kill him. For right now, that's basically all we're going to be doing for these fights. Later on, we'll be gaining the ability to buff ourselves and debuff the enemies. So that's something that we'll have to discuss then. But for now, I have a short menu where we just put all of our levels into Ravager, give us good stats, and that's it for right now. Then we'll head to the meteorite, which is now a gate. So these gates are sort of the cruxes of the story in this game, where let's see this aggressive encounter. Okay, luckily we escaped that encounter. So yeah, these gates are sort of the pivot points of the game. They are the entrances to various worlds, and we're going to be traveling through time and space by way of these gates to try and resolve different paradoxes to fix the inciting events that we saw. Something changed in the world, we don't know what, and we're trying to fix it by traveling through time. So these gates take us to the Historia Crux, and anytime we go to one of these gates, it opens a new place in the Historia Crux. So the first time, we're going to head 3 years into the future to a different place on Pulse called Breshan Ruins.
The Breshan Ruins is...
Oh, with Breshan Ruins on the Cocoon? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Brescia.
Yeah, you're right. Wait, I thought... Maybe I mixed up. I thought that was on Pulse.
Chapter 3 of 13.
I guess that's the part of Cocoon that's made with scrap from Cocoon or Pulse. That's why. So first thing that happens is when we get here, this paradox appears, and we don't really know what's going on. But there's a giant fist in the sky, and we have to try. So he's long ranged, and it turns out that there's a quick time event mechanic later on to stagger him. So for right now, it's best to just spam ruins. Normally we'd go into our Ravager paradigms to try and stagger him, but it's a little bit easier to just hit him with these ruins and then stagger him in the quick time. But you'll see Zero is shifting different paradigms. He's just shifting back and forth between his two calm paradigms just to get the full ATB charge from that ATB refresh every 12. So this fight is essentially totally scripted, and we just shift at the same times every time, watching for when Null attacks and uses ruins to beat him as quickly as possible. But then there's a little quick time event where Null runs up and pokes him in the face and staggers him and says, "An invisible giant." But as always, we stagger him and he dies.
Hostile located. Engage at will. Paradox effect confirmed. Targeting Atlas. Fire!
Most of the cutscenes in this game can be skipped, but these aren't cutscenes in the normal sense. They're part of the battle. They're scripted things that you have to watch. So we can't skip this. Otherwise, we skip pretty much everything. So it's kind of funny. Through these cutscenes, you get the ability to choose different options and choose what lines your character say. But despite that, you can still skip them with no consequence for the most part. There's a few places where you can't skip, and I'll mention those when they come. But otherwise, we pretty much skip every cutscene. So we've arrived in Brescia from the Historia Crux, and this giant is attacking the ruins. But something else is here in the ruins, and we want to help the people investigate the ruins, and so we're going to offer to help take down this giant.
Why did you offer to stop the giant?
So as it turns out, there's a little device deep in the ruins that will weaken Atlas. So we're essentially going to head straight to that device, activate it, but we have a few things that we'll be taking care of on the way. First one is a tutorial for one of the key mechanics of the game, which is called the Feral Link, where you can capture enemies that you defeated. So in 13, we got 3 characters. In this game, we only have Noel and Sarah, and so we can get these creatures to join our party. And so right now we're going to get a Kate Sith and a Zwerg Scandroid, but we're not going to use them because they're not super useful compared to the other possibilities. But we're about to farm for our first Feral Link creature that will be used. And the way these creatures work is they slot into paradigm slots in your paradigm pack, and each monster has its own paradigm associated with it. So we're going to look for a Nekton, and Nekton's a Ravager. So you can put a Nekton in your party, and then when you do paradigm shifts, you can shift between different creatures, of which you're allowed to have. So we're going to try and get a Nekton for a Ravager, and then later on we'll get a Synergist and a Commando.
Right.
But this is going to be the first thing we're looking out for. All of these encounters can possibly contain Nektons, and we're just waiting for the first encounter to contain a Nekton. Everything else we're just going to run from. Otherwise, right now, we're also being introduced to a mechanic, which is the reveal mechanic for Mog. So I mentioned the Mog clock. Mog has 2 other functions. This one allows us to reveal hidden artifacts and chests and items. And so we just got a wild artifact, which will open a certain type of gate later. But we're going to pick up some wild artifacts on the way. But that also just introduced the mechanic of revealing things. So we're sort of on the first key bit of RNG in the game, which is farming Nektons. So we are just watching for encounters. We just got an aggressive right before that cutscene, so it was actually pretty lucky because we despawned it with the cutscene starting. So that was actually a nice little piece of luck. And that means that we're less likely to get an aggressive on this part where it's hard to run from them. So pretty good luck. And then right at the very end, we get a aggressive. Once you enter that tunnel, you can't get aggressives anymore. And so what you saw Zero just do was, as soon as that aggressive appeared, he just hit start, clicked return to Historia Crux, and then now he's coming back to the same location. It'll spawn him right where he was, but without the encounter. So this loses several seconds, but it's better than having to worry about that aggressive encounter.
Yeah, it's near impossible to avoid the aggressives that appear right there. Because the tunnel is so narrow.
Yeah, the aggressives in this game are much faster than in 13. So in 13, you just have to dodge everything. In this one, it's really hard to dodge the aggressives. And the ones that aren't aggressive, you don't have to dodge at all. So dodging is not nearly as much a part of this game as it is 13.
Weird machine. Must be it.
Now, for those of you in chat who are talking about this game being a hallway, I would like to point out that we just passed a fork in the road, so it's not just... But we've now reached this device I mentioned that will weaken Atlas, and so this device transports us to a sort of parallel realm, which is just a paradox that we're going to try and resolve by solving various little puzzles. It's just a little thing they introduced. So we have to connect these crystals without crossing over one square in the platform more than once. It's just a simple graph theory puzzle that has already been worked out. It's not random, so we just have the solution memorized and just go straight on the solution to the puzzle. And I didn't want to spend too much time talking about this type of puzzle because literally we just saw the entire selection of those puzzles in this run. So we're not going to be back. That is one of the many puzzles that are involved in resolving these paradoxes. Later on, there's one where you connect dots to make a picture that we'll be doing in the speedrun, and there's several others that we don't do in the run, such as the clock puzzles that may have left some players of this game traumatized, myself.
Atlas is starting to slow down a little.
Sounds like we did something.
But once again, we're just waiting for Nekton to appear. Looks like that still has not happened. Nekton usually appears in fights with 3 or 4 enemies, and so we're gonna, if we reach the end of the tunnel before Nekton appears, we're gonna have to go counters until he appears, and then fight him over and over again until we farm him. Turns out each time you kill a monster, there's a certain chance that that monster that you get that monster as a feral link, and visually you can see it as a crystal appearing where the monster was defeated, and so yeah, we're gonna be grinding counters for a little bit until we see Nekton. So Zero left the tunnel to despawn that encounter, and he's just grabbing the Phoenix down, but we're going to run back into the tunnel because we still need that Nekton. It's actually pretty unfortunate luck to not get Nekton in all this. Just marathon things, it looks like. So besides grabbing that chest, we also have to talk to Chocobolina and Meow Meow Choco Chow. Do one of the few menus we have here. So just sell all those Phoenix Downs I mentioned we were farming. We're going to buy some Geishel Greens to all the Geishel Greens we need to ride the Chocobo for the rest of the run, and also a few Potent Bolts. The Potent Bolts we'll use to level up Nekton as soon as we catch him. Or Potent Droplets, sorry, Potent Droplets. But as soon as we get Nekton, we want to level him up to give him another ATB segment so we can do one more Thunder. So we did those 2 things. We got the chest, we talked to Chocobolina. Now we're just waiting for Nekton, which still not spawning.
Nekton's can spawn outside too, but if you try to get him outside, there's a chance that you get aggressive encounters, and don't want to deal with those.
More of the possible encounters inside have Nekton than outside, and also inside, there's no aggressives. This is pretty standard luck for a marathon. Alright, so now we got a normal encounter. We got the Nekton. So there's 2 possible Nektons for us to farm here. So each one dies in 1 hit. And so we're just going to fight this encounter over and over again until one of those Nektons turns to white and then crystal. And then we'll finish the I think it's a 20% chance for Nekton to get captured. 15% chance. So it's about 1 in 6 for each of these Nekton kills. But this is actually really fast compared to the other farm we have to deal with. So this shouldn't take too long. Every encounter gives us 2 chances, so we're coming up on 6 attempts. You see when the Ruin hits and kills the Nekton, it's turning to black. When it turns white, that's what you're looking for having captured the Nekton. So having to farm extra to get Nekton to appear, and now we're on 10. This is just marathon. Another thing you'll notice Zero is doing is he's moving closer and closer to the north. I think it's the north. So this encounter normally appears only inside, but it always appears wherever you were last. So he's getting the encounter to be closer and closer to where he wants to be, I mean, ideally, it would be better if just you got this encounter and got the Nekton first try, but all things considered, we're saving a few seconds by moving the encounter further to the destination we want to be at.
Yeah, I just need to be careful not to go too far, because if you go too far, then you despawn the encounter.
Yeah. So it should take you, on average, 6 tries to kill him, and I believe we're on try 16 now.
Like that.
Yeah, I think you've done 16 already. I believe this is a Poisson distribution if you're interested in the statistics, but it's just basically a 1 in 6 chance over and over again. There's 18. I don't think I've ever seen Nekton take this long.
I have.
What's the most you've seen? I think we're on 22 now.
First I've seen was like something like 40.
Oh my.
Yeah. So much for getting a world record in a marathon.
Yeah, right. This game auto-saves, so you don't have to do anything like any special safe strats. So there's no reason you couldn't get world record. Like in FF12, you have to play safe, and you couldn't really get world record in a relay. But in this, there's no reason you couldn't, except this happened. Yes, RNG this would be nice to have right now. So I think you've done 26 so far. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. I put this into a calculator, a Poisson distribution calculator, and this does not register on the 7 decimal places. So this is less than 0.00000. I guess because 0 is running, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean... all those is...
The calculator says the probability that we would have captured Nekton by now is 100%, so I don't know what we're doing. Maybe you already caught Nekton.
No. For a moment you had me... I've done it, but... Okay.
No one's hurt, right?
So, finally caught him. What is that, 32 tries? No big... At least it takes less time to farm this. We have to do another farm later on, where each kill takes much more time, so it's pretty frustrating when it takes a long time to get. But now we put Nekton into all of our paradigms. So now all of our paradigms have an extra commando. Gonna use all of our Christogen points to level up the Ravagers for Sarah and Noel, and give them both an extra ATB slot, so they both have 1 more possible abilities. You'll notice in the next fight, before Sarah would only add 3 possible abilities. Now she has 4, so does Noel. And then we're also leveling up Nekton as much as possible with potent droplets that we just bought from Chocobolina. So we're just doing this quick menu. All of our paradigms also have an extra Ravager, and now we're ready to finish off Atlas. So this fight it follows the exact same pattern as all the other fights we've done so far, which is we have Ravager, Ravager, Ravager for spamming spells, and we simply stagger him as fast as possible and then kill him. For this fight, it actually turns out that you are better off just staggering and then using spells to kill him. So we're not even going to switch to a paradigm with command. So if you execute this fight correctly, he's about to punch you, and you can stop him just before he punches you. But it looks like we missed 1 or 2 spells, so we got punched, lost a few seconds. But now that he's staggered, we're going to use Fyra. It's an ability we just got, and higher level magic does more damage and chain to staggered enemies. So we use Fyra there to do extra damage, and now he's done. Now we have a quick time event. Hopefully Zero doesn't fail this, because that'd be really bad. Ooh, you have to reset. Rip.
I have to redo the fight now.
You have to farm Necton again.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
I have to do
So,
Breshan again.
Turns out that quick time event is faster if you fail one of the first 2 quick time events. It just puts you right on top of his head, which is where you need to be. And so we failed that one intentionally just to get up here. We'll break this crystal, and then
Yeah, so what happened in the fight was I shift my first ATB, or my first paradigm shift was a little bit too fast and or a little bit too early, and Noel lost some ATB because of that, and then I didn't get enough spells. I couldn't get enough spells in Dagger for the punch.
yeah, the key mechanic behind ATB refreshing is you want to try and use all of your abilities so your ATB is totally empty, and then you refresh to fill it up. Otherwise, you waste some of the refresh. So the fights are set up more so at the beginning to take advantage of that. Later on, it's a little bit more messy, but we'll see. The feral link creature we get later on, called Chichu, he's going to be our commando. Right now, we're trying to sync our ATB, refreshes up really well, but when Chichu gets in the party, he kind of just wrecks everyone. So we focus more on him than on the party member. Or her. I don't know if Chichu's... I'm not going to assume Chichu's gender.
Already did.
So, you just noticed we revealed an artifact, picked it up. There's another artifact we're going to run up to here. So, get off Chocobo, reveal it, pick it up. It's kind of funny that they make the artifact invisible, but put a giant exclamation point floating in the air above it. Like, look here, there's something invisible. But that essentially finishes up our task here in Breshan Ruins. Pretty much every place has one thing you have to do story related. So now we finished that up, we're going to run over here and open a gate. This gate is actually going to open up an area that we're not going to go to for a little bit. I believe this one opens Sunleth Waterscape. Yeah, so this opens Sunleth Waterscape, but we don't actually want to go to the Sunleth Waterscape yet. So we're just opening that up, and we're going to go back to New Bodom to pick up another invisible item that we have to come back for. So way later in the game, there's going to be a search we have to do, where once you actually have the area unlocked, you have to start looking for things called graviton cores. But the graviton cores are there all along, and it turns out it's way faster and more convenient to just pick them up essentially as soon as you can. When you pick up the graviton core, you also get some Christogen points, and so we're going to pick it up now, get the Christogen points, and then we'll have the item in our inventory already for when they ask us to search for them later. So it's kind of a funny section of the game, because you show up at the facility and they're like, all right, go find any of these dozens of tens of items in anywhere in the world, and you're like, by the way, I actually have them all already. Here you go. You have to skip several cutscenes in a row just handing them over.
There's 8 of them in total, and but you only need 5. Sorry. So
Right.
Get the 5 that's the fastest to get, and everything else that we don't pick up like require multiple dungeons. So they're quite fortunate that we get the 5 ones.
Yeah. So we got this graviton core. It's one of the 5 that we need. And now Zero's running away because we have something else really important we have to do in New Bodom, which is get an encounter. So the steps are conserved between the different worlds in this game. And so what we did is we just forced an encounter, and then we Historia cruxed out. So now that we're essentially reset our steps, and it'll be a long time before we get our next encounter. So this is something we'll be trying to take advantage of as much as possible to avoid possible aggressive encounters. And so he's reset his steps, and now the next possible encounter will be several worlds from now. It'll be in the Sunleth Waterscape. But when we actually have that possibility... Oh, in Yasha, right, in Yasha, right, sorry. But the enemies in Yasha's that will be possible to run into are really scary, actually, and you have to crux out or die to them. So we're manipulating our...
Yeah, I think
a little bit of...
I think I could have not forced an encounter the New Bodom, actually, because I lured the Nectons so far.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, actually.
I didn't think of that until I had already started doing that point.
Yeah, which you also... Sorry.
At that point I had to. Mog.
So what you saw before was an interesting little mechanic, which is when you load from Historia Crux, your screen is actually dark for a few seconds while you can still move and interact with things. So Zero tried to get on the Chocobo while the screen was still dark. Unfortunately, the Chocobo had moved a little bit too much, and Zero ended up talking to the people right next to Chocobo instead. But that's a little thing that we'll try to take advantage of a few times, where we return from the Historia Crux and try and do something while the screen is invisible. And then after that, we had to go pick up Graviton Core, just like the one we picked up in New Bodom, except you have to have Mog there to reveal it. It's in a secret area, and Mog got stuck on his way flying over, so we had to just run in circles until Mog got there. One of the little nice things Mog. So we opened the other gate in Breshan, which gave us Sunleth Waterscape, which we'll go to later. But for now, we're going to the Yasha's Massif, because this is the next part of the story progression we want. So these numbers, the 010 AF, this refers to the year. So we were just in Brescia Ruins 3 AF, and so that was, right? Or is it 5 AF? 5 AF. So that's the number of years after the fall of Cocoon. So you start off the game, the first scenes were 3 years after the fall of Cocoon, and then we traveled 2 years into the future, and now we've gone 5 years further into the future. And now we're on Pulse again, I believe.
Yes, now we're on.
Yeah, now we're on Pulse. And so one of the key things that's happening in the story right now is a foul sea has covered up the sun, and so the whole area is dark. And so the song that's playing is one of my favorites, called Eclipse. And you'll notice that this area is really dark with some spotlights. So this is why we spent time manipulating steps, just because the enemies here are... when you're in the dark, the Mog counter goes down or goes up really quickly. So you want to get these encounters in specific places so that you don't get the encounters. We have to get over here, get this chest, get some mana slivers, which we'll use to level up. I believe the mana slivers are used for Gahongas.
On Necton.
Oh, on Necton, okay. Yeah, it's just something we use to level up the... So you'll see we got the encounter at in a dark area, but just ran directly into the spotlight and made the encounter go away. So that's why the steps were manipulated back in New Bodom. That's something we'll be doing a few more times. And now that we're out of that dark area, the enemies will be like normal, and so we're hoping not to get any aggressive encounters too early. Which it looks like we have, unfortunately, got. Was that Gahongas or was that Gandiax?
That's a Gahongas.
Yeah, that's a Gahongas. So that enemy, that there's 2 flower creatures and a 3rd creature. We're going to want to farm one of those. It's called Gahongas, but it takes a long time to kill this fight compared to the other one later. We're going to be getting more abilities for the farm later, so it turns out it would take too long to do right now. So we just had to retry that fight to get out of the aggressive zone. So we just barely got that, so didn't have to crux out and saved a little bit of time. So now we have a little quick menu here where we pick up 2 magician marks, one for each Sarah and Noel, and then we're going to spend all of our CP on Ravager, which is pretty much all we're going to do through the run until the very end. And then we're going to mess with our paradigms a little bit. So far we've been starting out in the Tri-Disaster paradigm, but we need a little bit of chain duration on this fight, so we're going to start off in Relentless Aggression with 1 commando paradigm. We've also been leading with Sarah, now we're going to lead with Noel, I think.
Yes.
We switch now? Yeah, we're going to use those mana slivers we picked up, so we're pretty much just leveling everyone up as much as we can. Just starting Relentless. Now all of our paradigms are wide except for the very first one, and then we are ready to do this fight. So this fight is actually one of the more scary ones in the whole run. It follows the exact same pattern as everything else, except he has way more damage, so this is a pretty scary fight. There's 2 ways the fight can go. You can either start with D-Shell or D-Protect. If he does D-Shell, he does a magic attack, because everyone will take more damage from magic. If he does D-Protect, he does a swipe attack. The magic attack is a little bit scarier because it causes your whole party to get launched into the air if you're not using any abilities, and so you have to be careful about how you time things. If he's just using swipe, it's not so scary. So we've chained him until he's staggered. Now he's staggered. We're going to continue chaining to get his chain gauge higher, so he's at 517. We're getting that up to a certain level, and then we're just going to kill him with our commandos. Same pattern as the boss's AI is set essentially once you see whether he uses D-Protect or D-Shells, so there's essentially 2 different scripts for the fight. So that was 49 seconds was a really good time, so well done. And you notice that his HP got in the red there, and that's why it's one of the scarier fights. When you're learning the run, it's one of the tougher ones.
Isn't the Academy a research institute?
What a-
The Protect one is pretty much guaranteed safe if you do it correctly, so you pretty much always end up in red HP. Sometimes even lower than what I had today. But it's safe. Die if you're correct.
These armed patrols are essential for our safety.
So right now, this is kind of a nice little mechanic that's good for speedrunning. We're waiting for Hope, or now older Hope, to run over to a place before you can interact with him. So while he's running up to this location, we just go and pick up a chest and get a free item. After this little event where we have to push triangle or push Y, we're going to do that again because he's going to run up this slope. So we get to pick up a free Geishel Greens and also the equipment over.
Yes.
So all of the times we use chocobos are mapped out through the whole run, and so that's why we knew how many Geishel Greens to buy at the shop earlier. We also pick up Geishel Greens on the way, which go towards our chocobo use. Chocobos are significantly faster and avoid encounters, so where possible we use them. So we're using the Christogen points we got from Aloadai, which is the fight we just did. We're getting an ATB gauge on Noel, and on Sarah, we're going to be getting the Saboteur paradigm. So we're using all of our Christogen points once again on Ravager for Noel. Sarah's going to get Saboteur, and we're going to put 2 levels onto that so that she gets D-Shell, and then all the rest of it goes to the Ravager. So we have D-Shell, and then everything else goes on Ravager. So D-Shell is important because, like I mentioned earlier, we typically stagger bosses and then kill them with commandos. Here we're going to chain them up towards stagger, and then once they have some chain, we're going to debuff them so that all of our magic does more damage to them. This is a mechanic we'll take advantage of anywhere possible through the rest of the run. But first, we have to farm a Gahangas. So if you thought Nekton was bad, Gahangas can be even worse. So we'll see how this goes. But D-Shell is also used for Gahangas. Gahangas has a lot more HP than Nekton. So we're going to try and D-Shell him and then kill him with Ruins, which are the Commando's magical attack that D-Shell will cause more damage to. So we've essentially finished the plot that we need to take care of here in Yasha's. We're going to come back to an alternative timeline a little bit later, But before we head out to the gate, we have to get a Gahanga's encounter. So there's a shadow here. Around the edge of this shadow is where the encounters begin. And so we're running around near the edge so that if we get the wrong encounter, we can run back into the light and despawn the encounter. We're also running around on this block because it makes it easier to force a preempt, which is what Zero did. So this is actually the best possible encounter for us to get. It has 2 Gahangas in the fight. And so there's 2 chances for us to get the Feral Link we need from each. So we're essentially going to kill both Gahangas and restart the fight just like we did with Nekton. As you can see, this takes much longer. And we got second try. Second try, Gahangas in the first fight. So this makes up for a good amount of the time we lost on Nekton, because this typically takes longer than Nekton.
It was a really fast fight too. Like usually no, whenever you get that formation, no guys. Now able to.
Yeah, that was nice luck. And so now we are going to do essentially the last paradigm menu of the game. We're going to make our second paradigm Malevolence, which allows us to. So we changed our second paradigm to Malevolence, which has a Gahangas. Gahangas is a synergist, and so anytime we switch to Malevolence now, the party leader will get buffed by Gahangas. And we changed the third one to a Smart Bomb, which is 2 Ravagers and a Saboteur. So now part of our pattern is going to be switching into Smart Bomb to debuff enemies and switching into Malevolence to buff the party leader. So we're actually going to take advantage of this full pattern on the next fight. We're heading to the Sunleth Waterscape where we're going to find snow. And the first thing we're going to fight is a giant mutant tomato called Royal Ripeness. And we'll see the full pattern which is available to us now with buffing and debuffing. By the way, you didn't say, what was the probability of getting Gahangas each time you kill him?
20%.
20%. So yeah, Nekton is a 15%, and it took us something like 30 tries to get him. Gahangas is 5% more, and we got it in second try. So.
But why? Why did she react the way she did? Wow. That is one gigantic monster.
So we also have Aurora now. These Flans are weak to air attacks, so. Now we have Smart Bomb, so we chain, we go into Smart Bomb until you'll notice underneath Royal Ripeness's health, there's a D-Shell logo. We switch to Smart Bomb to get that, and then we switch to Malevolence, and Gahangas gave the Faith ability to our party leader. And so we're actually leading with Sarah now, I believe?
No.
Noel, okay, yeah, Noel gets Arrow, and so we're leading with him. And so now the other thing that I mentioned earlier that we're doing now is called buffering. So we're casting the arrows, or the Auroras, in Tri-Disaster, and while the Auroras are traveling towards Royal Ripeness, we shift to the paradigm with Commandos, and that gives the Commando roll bonus to the Ravager spells. And so the Commando roll bonus is bonus damage. So the Auroras will do extra damage because of this Commando buffering. So you'll see him shifting back and forth between paradigms while his moves are traveling towards the enemy. And that's a key focus throughout the rest of the speedrun is choose the element or a spell that the enemy is weak to, and then buffering to get extra. So, Noel comes from the future, and in his future, Cocoon, which partially fell towards Pulse during the events of Final Fantasy XIII, is being supported by a crystal pillar. It was created by Fang and Vanille. In this game, so in Noel's future, Cocoon has collapsed. So right now, at least in Sarah's time, Cocoon is suspended by the pillar. In Noel's time, it's collapsed, and we're trying to investigate why that happened, or if we can prevent that. And so we're finding out now that these flans, these tomatoes, are eating away at the crystal pillar. So we're trying to stop them. So that's why you fought Royal Ripeness just now. And now we're just advancing the plot further here. We're trying to look for where the flans are coming.
It looks like the Flan are all headed in that direction. Show me the kill, Kubo.
Yes, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey is a good way to describe what's happening.
Look at these guys. They sure know how to stay in line.
So we're just running through the Sunleth Waterscape to a nice little tune.
So this is where they were.
Of course, as speedrunners, we know exactly where we're headed, so we're just headed to the location where the flans are appearing, and then we'll have to fight a few. When there's multiple enemies, like in these fights, we tend to not bother with debuffing, so the pattern is just get into Malevolence to power up the leader, cast our Auroras, and then start commando buffering. Another cool thing about Aurora that you may have noticed is that the Aurora can actually launch them all up into the air. So they don't.
Actually, it's I think it's Terra's Tandaga. That's
Oh, it's Tandaga. Okay, so Aurora. So it has to be a Ga to launch them, I guess.
yeah.
A level 3. In a little while, Noel will get Aurora, which will allow him to do that. Yeah, as it was mentioned, people aren't living on Cocoon so much. More people are living on a Pulse, but the Cocoon collapsing onto Pulse leads to the end of humanity. So we're trying to prevent that. Essentially save the world. A standard Final Fantasy plot device. So now we're taking a mandatory little stop at the Colosseum. This is just not something you can do during the main story, but they make you go here one time. So we're going to go here really quick. There's a live scene that we can't skip, but then we're going to skip cutscenes and then head out. There's a few of these stops along the way.
So we need to get the white hole gem and black hole gem, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And get one of them for entering the Colosseum, and the other one. The next world we are going to.
I'm just trying to open various gates in Historia Crux to allow us to go to the places we need to go to advance.
Do you think there's still another paradox?
So we stopped off at that gate to open the Colosseum. Now we're going to head back to where the other flams are spawning and then kill those flams. Now there's a little mechanic we're taking advantage here, which I haven't talked about, and that's throwing Mog. So we throw Mog to open chests that we can't reach otherwise. And the key thing that you have to understand here is that when Mog is picking up a chest, he will not be able to do his Mog clock mechanic. So when he's picking up a chest, and if you get an encounter while he's picking up a chest, then the encounter will time out much faster, and you'll be more likely to be forced to either fight the encounter or Crux out. And so you may have noticed Zero just stopped and stood still there for a few seconds while Mog was picking up the chest. because he didn't want to risk getting that encounter early and having to. So Moogle is revealing some flans. We'll throw them really quickly.
So no.
Another thing we take advantage of is there's some locations where you can't get encounters, like on these branches. So he threw Mog, and now we're running on these branches, and we can't get encounters here. So it's safe to run while Mog is being.
Hey, this is where the flan we're trying to get to.
And there's our artifact.
So these flans are guarding another artifact, and then once we pick this up, we'll essentially be done with the plot of Sunleth Waterscape, at least in terms of what's mandatory for the. This is essentially the same exact fight as before.
Except that there's less of them.
Yeah, less of them, so it's a little bit faster on average. Conveniently, the game put a chocobo here for us to ride to the gate. Saves us the chance of running into encounters and gets us there.
From my own history, the pillar was gradually eroded over centuries before civil war finally toppled it.
Did your history books happen to mention the monster?
No, the rate that thing is eating through the crystal.
So one of the first places we went on Pulse in 13 was the Archylte Steppe, and now we're headed there to a different time. So question mark, question mark, question mark after fall. We don't actually know when this is, but we're headed. We don't really control where these gates take us. All we know is that the gates lead to paradoxes that we have to resolve. Either paradoxes or. So we've been sent here, and we have to try and figure out what needs to be done. Something here is related to what's happening
Good idea.
with the flans, and we don't know.
Chocobos decide they need to stretch their legs.
But we're gonna head into this village. In this village, we'll have a guy who sends us on a mission. We're gonna go and look for the goblin fragment, which is gonna be a fight that gets us a fragment.
I was setting up camp when I heard a deafening sound.
We're also gonna pick up a item here called the Grimoire hat, I think it's called. And yeah, Grimoire hat, and that is an item we won't use until the very last chapter, or the very last dungeon. But that gives us double healing from potions. So the potions are good enough for pretty much every fight up to then. But when we get to there, it'll be nice. We'll get an extra accessory slot and put that on and get double healing for the later fights.
Search somewhere in this area, I
But
guess.
once again, we level up everyone's Ravager. We also got an ability called Overwhelm, which gives us more chain for the coming fights. But we're just heading to this place where we know the Goblin Fragment is, and the first encounter after we get here should be the Goblin fight. This fight contains mini flans, so we know it's related to the mini flan problem on Sunleth. It also contains goblins and a chocobo. There's a set pattern where we want to kill the chocobo first. So we're going to Smart Bomb to debuff the chocobo. We're spamming Blizzara Blizzaga. This is a pretty common pattern we'll see through the rest of the run, to do an aura and then an Aga. The Agas take time to reach, and so it's easy to command go buffer and get extra damage from the stronger spell. So we do the Blizzara Blizzaga on the goblins and the chocobo, but then mini flans, as we mentioned, are weak to air, so we use Aurora, and that's it. Fight down. We got the goblin fragment, and now we can head back to.
Okay.
So the next mechanic is, it turns out that there's a worm or a dragon called Feral, and he is producing the flans which travel into the future, or he's the tunnel to the Sunleth Waterscape the flans are taking. So the flans are getting there because of this creature Feral. But there's another thing we have to think about, which is Feral only appears during certain weather patterns, and there can be a really, really strong enemy that guards him, or that stands in front of him, stopping you from getting to him. So you have to change the weather a few times before you can actually unlock the fight. And you have to do an errand for the village. So we talked to this sheep lady, and she wants us to pick up 3 different types of wool. So we're going to pick up the wool. Conveniently, these sheep are attracted to Mog, so we throw Mog to get them to run towards us. Just do this 3 times to get the wool, and this will unlock the weather changer, which will allow us to get to Feral. And that's pretty much all we have to do here in the Archylte Steppe, besides when we come back. And when we come back, it'll only be for a few seconds. Another key thing to pay attention to is that we're only throwing Mog at times when we know we can't get an encounter. So an encounter opened up, and then when the encounter disappeared, that's when he threw Mog to make the sheep run towards him if possible. So we've got our 3 types of wool. We can run back or teleport back to the village, unlock the weather, change the weather a few times, and then So I think the way this works is Feral only appears when the weather is bad, or when it's overcast.
He likes good weather.
He likes good weather. Right, okay, yeah. He likes it. Yeah, right. He likes good weather. However, good weather also brings a Longui, I think it is.
Yep.
One of the boss monsters from 13. But the Longui is scared of thunder, so we have to make the weather good. So we have good weather, and then we shift the weather to stormy to make the Longui go away, and then we shift it back to go and fight Feral. So right, if we went there now, Longui would be there, but now we shift it back. Longui is gone because it's stormy, and Feral's still there because the weather was good before, and so now we can go and fight the. So this is another one of the scary bosses. It especially looks pretty scary because your health is going to get pretty low. But you essentially stagger him before his first attack, and then he has 2 really strong attacks in a row, which we're going to tank with the Sentinel paradigm, which we have not used and I have not explained. But the Sentinel is essentially a paradigm where you don't attack, you just take less damage. So we shift into those paradigms to take less damage, and then shift back to kill him. So it's going to be stagger. We'll actually buff up while Feral is flying around and we can't do anything anyway, and then we'll kill him. Commando buffering Blizzards and Blizzagas. So he swoops at you while he's flying around. We shift to Malevolence, get Faith, shift back, tank the attack, and then do the normal pattern of Try Disaster, buffering attacks. You got it?
A little bit of Among Us.
Yeah, so a little bit of a mistake happened there. Right after he tanked the strong attack, Zero had some muscle memory that made him want to do repeat instead of Blizzara Blizzaga, and so Noel ran towards Feral, and he's using an area of effect attack, so if Noel stands further back, Feral will only either hit Sarah or Noel, but he ran forward, so both characters were taking the attacks, so Sarah died, lost a little bit of damage, but still barely got the kill, so we in there.
Nice.
It's a little bit of a monk-ass fight, and it was more monk-ass than it needed to be, but...
Yeah, if you don't kill Ferril before his dagger ends, he will use a move called Great Roar, and that will just kill you.
And you're already at low HP, so you're gonna...
Like, I think it would kill you even from full HP.
So we ran up to a bush, or a bunch of flowers in the ground, and left for Historia Crux. The reason we did that was that we want to come back there to throw Moogle later. But the item we're going to get from that is Chichu, actually, the Feral Link commando that we'll be using for the entire end of the run. However, you have to have powered up, or you have to have the fragment skill unlocked for better Moogle finding before you do that. So we have to come back to do it later. But once again, you may have noticed the pattern. We're going to give points on Ravager for both Sarah and Noel. And we'll go and fight the mutant. The first and most important thing for pretty much for Noel and Sarah, eventually Chichu, is
Unlucky fight. Launch my entire party. And wasted some time because I can't move when, or I can't do anything when I'm...
We might not be able to reach it, but it's not a problem for our buddy Mog now, is it?
Leave it to me, Kupo.
So, now that Mutant Tomato's down, picking up a mysterious artifact we'll use to unlock another gate, and then we'll be essentially done with the Sunleth Waterscape for the rest of the run. So now we're going to go to the Void Beyond outside time. That's kind of a funny section of the game. You have to be careful not to mash X because it might take you to Serendipity before you want to. But then we go to the Void Beyond. It's just hinting towards what's going to happen later in the game where we have to go outside time.
Weird enough.
But for now, we're just going to visit really quickly. We just go to this area, see that something weird's going on, and then enter the rip in time to now head to, I believe, Erba.
Yep.
So our next stop is going to be somewhere else we went in Final Fantasy XIII, and that is Vanille's home village, except 200 years now after the events at the end of Final Fantasy. So we'll see when we get here that Erba has been totally ripped apart by these paradoxes, and it's totally dead land. We have to try and undo these paradoxes through a bunch of puzzles. So it's super happy, fun puzzle.
Yeah, Erba in this game is the land of puzzles. Like, there are 2 optional airboy areas, and those are exactly the same as this one of puzzles.
So I mentioned earlier that now we have to just connect these dots. The mechanic here is that you have to link similarly colored crystals to each other. So the pattern is pretty much set, and Zero has it memorized. I think there's 3 of these sections. The first one's just one, but then the other ones contain other multiples. But we're essentially just running through Erba, unlocking various areas until the whole area is. So another parallel plot that has been developing with everything else is the people known as the Farseers, who I believe lived on Pulse. And among the Farseers was a Cirrus called Yule. And so Yule is someone actually that Noel knew, she knew one of the Yules. And so every time a Yule dies, a new one is born, and Yule is just a person who can see the past and the future. And one of the key plot points of this game is that when you change the timeline, Yule has the Eyes of Etro, and the Eyes of Etro lets her see all of the changes that happen through time, and all of these changes are overwhelming and cause her to shorten her lifespan and die young. And so you're trying to change time to essentially save the world, but in doing so, every time you change something, you're killing Yule, and then she comes back, and then she dies again. So she's only been talked about as one of the Farseers so far, but until now, we're actually going to meet her for real, and it's part of an unskippable cutscene, so you'll actually get to see her and Caius interact a lot once we've resolved all of these anomalies and fought the boss coming. Now, if you're anything like me, when you played this game the first time, I found Caius to be one of the more difficult bosses when I first started playing. The Caius, at least for his first several encounters, is sort of a glass cannon where he does a lot of damage, but he doesn't have too much HP. He also has an ability which is pretty uncommon in Final Fantasy XIII called Chain Break, where if he is staggered or has chain, he can reset it back to 0. So this normal pattern of just staggering and then killing doesn't always work so well for him, but if you just focus in and do damage, he goes down pretty quickly. So once we finish all these puzzles, that's gonna be our next challenge, is defeating Caius. We're also going to take advantage of something for the first time here, which is the Feral Link ability. So in the fight, instead of just using Gahongas to give us faith, we're actually going to Feral Link with him, and that's going to give everyone in the party a full set of buffs. They don't last very long, but the fight doesn't last very long either, so we'll get a lot of buffs really, really quickly just by making Gahongas do a nice little dance. So far, we've skipped all the cutscenes, but this next cutscene will give us a nice little speedrun introduction to Caius and Yule. And by the way, these picture puzzles are actually more difficult than they may seem, but Zero's making it look so easy.
Yeah, you can ask Cruz that. He
I'm so bad at these.
with them in last runs I saw, but to be
All
on his defense, they are also harder on PC because they. You might have noticed the first one of that last set of puzzles. I intentionally stopped moving for a while, and then the colors changed. That happens on PC, but it happens a lot faster. So they can, if you aren't fast enough on PC, they can keep changing really fast, and you can get really confused
Yeah, exactly.
when you pattern.
Would just me every time I try and do one of those puzzles. It also doesn't help that I did most of my practice on Xbox and then moved to PC and was very confused. But now, so we're going to do some of the standard Ravager leveling before we do this fight. We're going to walk up to a thing called an Oracle drive, which is just basically a USB drive that contains a bunch of memories of the past and future. And these drives are associated with Yule. So Yule and Caius show up and try and stop us from changing the past and future. We'll see Caius discussing the sanctity of the timeline and so forth.
Hey, hold on a second. What do you mean, sanctions?
I must protect the sanctity of the timeline.
So after doing that run casually, the speedruns fight seems.
Stop this, Caius. I am not going to fight you.
Times have changed. I'm not the Caius you once knew. To change history is a sin.
It's too late. The timeline has already changed.
But must we accept this, Yule?
If you change the future, you change the past. You can remold history as your heart desires.
Let's go now, before you are made to witness more. Come.
So the idea behind the plot is, at the end of Final Fantasy XIII, you may remember that your party was all a sea, and they fulfilled their focus, which they may have given to themselves, of saving Cocoon, and they all turned to Crystal. But after they turned to Crystal, they all turned back out of Crystal, and it was never really explained in 13 why this happened. And so 13-2 retcons this as saying the goddess Etro saved all you because she was so moved by your actions, and in doing so, she hurt or set forth the destruction of herself. And so, in this future, Yule is the person who has the eyes of Etro, and that lets her see the past and the future. And Caius has the heart of Etro. and so Etro is the goddess, and so these two have sort of split the power. And original Caius is someone that Noel knew in the future, but now for that Caius you just met, that's someone who has been alive for a long time and has watched Yule die many times, always reborn with the eyes of Etro, allowing her to see the past and the future. Sounds a little bit like a fan fiction, if you ask me, but hey, that's the story. So Caius is trying to stop us from changing the past and the future because that's killing Yule, and he's trying to protect her. And we are trying to save the world. So that's the fundamental conflict here. So we're picking up one more Graviton Core, and then we can head out. To explain the idea of if you change the past, change the future, you change the past. I think what they mean is when you change the future, you're moving to a different timeline with a different past. And when you change all of that, it causes Yule to see all the changes and kill.
Now we see our first example of moving to a different timeline.
Yeah, so far we've been in different places on the same timeline, and now we're moving to Yasha's Massif 01X. So 01X is just 10 AF, except it's the alternative timeline where we changed the past and the future. So before we went to Yasha's Massif, there was a Loadai we killed, and then we met Hope, and that was actually where we saw our first Oracle Drive. And the Oracle Drive we saw contained memories showing Lightning fighting against Caius in Valhalla. And so now we've changed the timeline. We hopefully think we've saved Cocoon, and now we're coming here to see what the Oracle Drive shows, and we don't even know whether Hope is going to be here. Hope might have been drawn here, but he will actually be here.
Hey, it's no longer dark.
But yeah, it's no longer dark because we fixed the Foul Sea paradox causing the eclipse. But that didn't stop us from getting an aggressive encounter.
Yeah, but there are no more Gahangases.
Well, it's not like we need ones.
I was afraid of what would happen if no one was here.
I guess the ruins were interesting enough. They didn't need the paradox to draw them here.
So there's nothing really for us to do here besides to talk to Noel or talk to Hope. Quite a bit of story progression happens here. There's 7 cutscenes you have to skip in a row. And then we go and pick up an artifact and then head to the gate. So this is essentially part of the game where we're going to be just progressing.
Director, who are you waiting for?
I don't know.
In a world...
But this is sort of the start of the next plot of the game, which is where humanity is developing up. Hope is going to create a city called
Right now, we don't
Academia,
know where the artifact might be.
and then we'll be heading there shortly. I actually have to do to
You should try asking
Augusta
some
Tower
people
first.
around here. They might know something that will help.
But pretty much the future of Pulse and Cocoon is going to be shaped by Hope. Now that we've fixed.
We did it! Now we gotta find out which gate it belongs to.
Just this moment, I felt the disturbance coming from the mountain. There you go. I bet my bomb will locate
So we picked up the artifact that lets us open the gate, and now we're going to head to the gate. That'll take us to Augusta.
I bet my baby's missing. I need everyone.
So Augusta Tower is essentially like a research facility that was created by Hope to try and figure out what to do about the ending world, and we'll see what they decide was the best plan once we actually. Along the way, we're going to grab an item called a unicorn horn. Unicorn horn is basically a full party remedy. It just takes away all negative status elements. You get one unicorn horn, and we use it on one attack from the final boss. The final boss has a really bad attack called Break Curse, and that gives everyone a bunch of bad status elements. So we have this unicorn horn now, and we're ready to save time on the final boss from that.
It's actually more like a Belga in...
Yeah, okay, yeah, Dispelga. It's a good way to describe it. I never used Dispelga in 13 though, so...
I think it also removes buffs. Not just buffs.
Okay.
And maybe from enemies... Answer me.
Try using the switch.
So now we've gone 290 years into the future, and there's this facility that was created by Hope called the Augusta Tower. All we know is that it's sort of like a research facility, and it appears to be infected with paradoxes. So we're just going from room to room trying to resolve the paradoxes to figure out what actually happened here in Augusta Tower. So for right now, it's just essentially solving little computer rotation puzzles, trying to get to the final area. We'll do a little bit more exciting story-related stuff later on, but for now it's just trying to figure out what's going on.
All of this is happening because of one person hacking into the system.
I know, but it has
This first trip to Augusta Tower has possible aggressives, but not as many, so hopefully we don't get any, and we just get there with having to worry about a single.
I don't think that's enough.
The aggressives here are actually really rare. Like, out of all the places that have aggressive, this one has the lead.
Later on, it'll be actually mostly aggressives when we come back on the later levels. However, those aggressives we can kill quickly, and also they have a chance to drop a really important feral link creature. So that was really unlucky. Basically, it's not aggressive, but we got the encounter right near the place we wanted to be to push the button, and it's sort of almost a dead end. So he tried to run away, but couldn't get away to these.
I think I had some bad move post that encountered.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the encounters are determined by steps, and so if you have bad movement, you'll get the encounter before you should normally, and so that's might be what. This place, it's kind of got a similar feel to Orphan's Cradle.
Yeah, it does. Oh.
Get the idea that developers made this place, and they're like, well, we don't know what it's supposed to be, but it looks cool, so let's put it in the game.
Like, maybe Hope was just by the Orphan's Trail and got the design ideas from.
I like that. I mean, if you have, if you're gonna make an artificial fallacy, you might as well make an artificial Orphan's. So, essentially, Hope's first idea for saving Cocoon is the crystal pillar that supports it is eventually going to collapse, and it's going to collapse because we killed the Fal'Cie orphan. And so, essentially, his idea is he's going to make an artificial Fal'Cie called Adam, and that'll essentially replace Orphan, except it'll be under control because it's, it's artificial. It's made by us. What could possibly go wrong? But as it turns out, this plan does not work out, and so I believe the facility is essentially being hacked from the future by Adam. If I'm
Like that.
So these paradoxes we're trying to resolve are being caused by the fallacy that we have, that Hope has created, and we're just trying to resolve this now, and we'll see a more direct encounter with Adam later on. Some of the more other consequences of his act.
Later or in the past.
Later in our timeline. In the future path. If you, or past future. I'm not sure which. Yeah, so all we would do is get to this. We've resolved all the paradoxes, put in the password, and now we're done in Augusta Tower now. For now. Actually, this is Augusta Tower 300. We're done with Augusta Tower 300 now. We'll come back 100 years ago. So, in the future, we'll go to the past.
Yes.
So now we head back to Yasha's Massif. That'll open another gate, which will allow us to go to Academia. 400? So it looks like we got 0 of the preload chocobo rides. Feels bad.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So what's happening now is when you make these changes to the timeline and when you open these gates, several times throughout the game, we're skipping cutscenes where Yule is just somewhere nearby. We go into the gate, timeline changes, and then Yule just dies. And so Caius is with her this whole time, and he's kind of just going crazy watching Yule die over and over again. Person he's supposed to protect and just dies over and over.
Something looks different from the last time we were here.
For some reason, the world just hates this one person in particular. You know, this is now a slightly longer visit to the Void Beyond. But once again, we're just going to go. We're just seeing that the timeline is still fragmented, and we're going to come back and head to Academia, I believe. Yes. So, actually, first we're going to head to Serendipity. So Serendipity is, I don't really know what the deal is supposed to be, but it's a casino that exists outside time. There's like games and stuff here. You have to spend a lot of time on the slots if you want to get 100%, 160 fragments. But for us, we just have to go to the fragment skill tent to unlock a few fragments. Specifically, we have to get the improved Mog Throw. That'll allow us to get Chichu. And we have to get Haggle, which will allow us to sell items for more gil. Which we might not use now if we have enough gil, but later on we'll use it.
Need to use it in the next shot because I will.
Yeah, so he skips chest, so we're going to sell some items to make up for the missing gil. So we're going to haggle, sell things for more, and also get improved Moogle. So I mentioned that we'd be heading back to the Archylte Steppe. This is when we're going to do it. So now we have improved Mog Throw. We can head to Archylte Steppe, pick up Chichu, and that's it. So we're just going to throw Mog one time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully only one time. But yeah, Chichu is kind of a beast. You guys will see how strong he is. But he's going to be doing the bulk of the damage for the rest of the run once we put him in our Paradigm Pack. He's just like a little, as someone in chat described it earlier, he's a little white nut that just wrecks everyone. mini Flan figurine. So we went to Augusta Tower, 300 AF, 300 years after the fall of Cocoon, and 100 years. So in Augusta Tower is when we saw Hope's plan to create the artificial fallacy atom. So now 100 years into the future from then, in Academia, Academia is the capital city that on Pulse that Hope has worked towards creating, and in this city is the proto fallacy or artificial fallacy atom, and we are sent to this time because this is the time when the fallacy starts going crazy and rebelling against the humans.
Who did this?
So as soon as we get here, we notice that the fallacy atom is turning everyone into all of these law-abiding citizens of Cocoon. We just gotta go around murdering. Or sorry, of Pulse, of Academia. So all of the encounters in this area are aggressive. So if we get an encounter, we either have to just fight it, or there are a few places we can take advantage of tricks to get around them. But for now, it's just a series of battles while we work our way towards the place where Adam is. Eventually we'll fight up. Although the boss is not. I mentioned earlier we got haggle. We got haggle for this shop. We got to sell some of the components we've gotten, or the monster material. That will allow us to buy some more power slivers, which we're not going to use yet. We're going to wait until we get Chichu. We're done leveling up Nekton, and everything's going to go towards Chichu. Well, besides possible Odin or Durkin. Perfect fight.
That guy must have been the gatekeeper, huh?
Guess so. Now we know how to get past the rest of these barricades.
Yeah, we have Chichu now, but it turns out for these fights it's a little bit faster to keep using Nekton. So while we're running around through Academia, we're also chasing Caius, but we never really get to see that because we're skipping all. There's another mechanic I didn't mention earlier that sort of comes into play, not really in the speedrun. It's called wounding. You may notice sometimes when you look at their health that there's a red part and there's a clear part. The clear part is the wound, and it reduces your maximum HP, and it's sort of a mechanic to limit how long you can spend in fights. But it turns out that in the speedrun, you never get wounded enough for it to matter, so I never really won't bring it up again. So all these Seath enemy are super weak. They go down basically in one high level magic spell, so it's a pretty straightforward fight. The attack sims are a little bit stronger, or take a few extra spells, but everything here goes down pretty easily. So there's another gate just up ahead that we need to go to get the last graviton, the 5th graviton core. But in order to get that gate, we need a wild artifact, and we don't have the wild artifact yet. So we'll come back later to do that. For now, we're just trying to advance the Academia plot as quickly as.
This is happening because of us.
Now coming up is a pretty cool trick. We'll see if Zero can get it. There's an aggressive encounter that you can't get around, but or that you would not normally be able to get around. Okay, he just barely despawned that one, so that was really good.
Caius, we gotta catch him
And then there's another aggressive encounter here that you also can't get around, but if you start the encounter late and then make it to the escalator, you can totally escape it, so we'll see. The escalator pushes you away, and quickly enough that you can escape the area. Yeah, it looks like you got it. Yeah, so both those aggressive encounters were avoided, which saves a good amount of time. All the way to reach. So now we're done with Nekton, and we're switching into Chichu. Chichu does huge damage, and the first thing we're going to do is have Chichu eat Nekton. We just put Chichu in where Nekton was, so now all of our Rav 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 paradigms have become Rav Rav Com, or Com Com Rav is Com Com Com. And we're going to level up Chichu using the items we've been saving up.
Infusing Nekton to Chichu gives Chichu a 10% magic boost, which useful fights.
Yeah, there's a few fights either where Chichu can't attack, and he has to use ruins, or enemies that are weaker to ruins than to attacks. He'll use ruin, and so the 10% boost to his magic means pour one out. Yeah, so you may notice there's just a little dancing little sphere with a giant mouth. He either shoots ruins or walks up and sort of pecks on the enemies, but he does massive damage. He is really... One of the big reasons why we've only been leveling up the Ravager is Sarah and Noel can just do the chaining to get the chain high, and then Chichu will do the... So these two fights that Zero had to fight, it's kind of a weird thing in the coding where these fights only really happen on the console versions of the game. If you do it on PC, these fights don't appear. It's very...
Yeah. I had one run on 360.
Now he's over there.
Once where those guys didn't spawn for me on 360. Needless to say, that it was a great goal at the time.
Yeah. So now it turns out the fastest way to get to where we want to go is this escalator is heading up and we want to go down. The fastest way to get to where we want to go is actually just to mash circle and jump down the escalator going the wrong way. So when you were a kid, you were anything like me, you would go up escalators the wrong way. You get to satisfy that urge here.
The game doesn't expect you to go this way, but there are no encounters down here, even though the rest of the Academia is encountered. So you can...
Yeah, you get encounters... You
can get some encounters.
Looks like things finally aren't going our way, Kupo.
Oh.
Unlucky. Yeah, and aggressive here is... I'm not even sure if I've seen it, but once you get on these escalators, you can get out of the battle zone really quickly. So now we have a 3-battle series where we're just going to fight stronger and stronger. So first up is XIII-2, I think it is. I'm not sure how it would be pronounced. We're going to follow a pretty standard pattern, which is buff ourselves, debuff the enemy, and then commando buffer the strong wind. Now you may notice Chichu is running up and just ramming his face into the enemies, and it does huge damage. First XIII, and the next enemy, I forget his. So 2 XIII, and then we'll be fighting Zenobia.
Weirdly, the first encounter has a XIII and an Elapsy. The second one has a XIII. So
yeah, it's restrained. But it's essentially the same pattern for both fights. And it's not a scary fight or anything. He goes down pretty. On the other hand, Zenobia can be a bit of a scary fight. Not scary so much as it has a precise timing that you have to execute well.
yeah, and if you don't, then it's so scary.
Yeah, it gets scary if you can't execute this, so we'll see. But the key mechanic behind Zenobia is he has these tentacles that come out of the ground that protect him. So the first thing you're going to do is see is go into defensive stance, and then you have to take care of these Vabolathuses, which are the tentacles coming out of the ground. Chichu can do the bulk of the damage here. So you're essentially just waiting for Chichu to take these out. Once these are taken out, he is no longer protected, and you can go in with your Spark Strikes, and we're going to follow the same pattern once again. We do chaining, and then we get a Feral Link with Gahangas because we want to buff everyone up, so everyone gets full set of buff. And then we chain, debuff, and then start attacking. So once he's staggered, he will be interrupted. And and you're going to try and keep him interrupted to stop him from going back into the defensive stance. So I will be quiet and let Zero try. So, perfectly executed. So, buff up, debuff, stagger, and then you keep him interrupted. Chichu's strings only take up a certain amount of time, so between Chichu's strings, you use Noel and Sarah to keep him interrupted. And then once he gets below, I believe, 30% HP, he wants to immediately go back into the defensive stance. So you have to keep interrupted, and then on Chichu's second to last string, you watch Chichu run up, start attacking him, and then you ATB refresh and cancel Chichu's ready animation so that he keeps on attacking and keeps him interrupted, and then you're able to completely finish him off with Chichu. So yes, that was a nearly perfect fight. The tentacles took a little bit longer to kill than normal, but otherwise perfect.
Yeah, there's a little bit of RNG in how the tentacles spawn. They can spawn various patterns, and some patterns are better than others.
Yeah, I think the AoE spells can either hit one or multiple to stagger them. If they get staggered, it goes more. One of the memes in the FF13-2 communities is, how did we lose time on Zenobia? And to answer the question this time, I would say it's because of that weird encounter on the elevator. So the story progression is we went to Augusta Tower 300 years after the fall of Cocoon, and we saw the plan to create the artificial Balsi atom. We went 100 years to the future after the creation of this Balsi, and we saw that the plan did not work just now. So Adam is going crazy in academia. And so we're going to go back to the past before when we saw the plan and to Augusta Tower, and we're going to stop them from creating Adam, or we're gonna try and kill Adam in the past when he was weaker.
Let me guess.
So there's still paradoxes here, and all the people look really weird, and we don't know. Yeah, something I mentioned in passing that I'll go into a little bit more detail on it because we're just advancing the plot right now. The ready animation cancel. If you ATB refresh during the animation of an attack, the character who is currently attacking will continue their attack. Will move on to their next attack without doing a ready animation. The ready animation is something you'll see characters do when you do your ATB refresh or when you change paradigms. It's just like a little adjustment of their swords, but it kind of wastes time. You can cancel the ready animation, you can keep attacking and maintain the interruption, which is pretty much most important for that one fight in this game. It's a more important mechanic in 13 than in 13-2.
That was Caius, right?
So Augusta Tower, this is 200 years in the future from the start of the game, and we see that it's populated by these scientists, and we also see Caius moving around, but we're skipping the cutscenes where we actually see Caius. Here we're picking up that wild artifact that I mentioned earlier will be used to go into the gate in Academia to pick up our last graviton core. So we got that now. There's another route where you can actually pick up the wild artifact in the Sunleth Waterscape, but we use the late graviton core strategy.
Let's find out for sure.
So now we see Alyssa is here. Alyssa was the girl that we met in the Breshan ruin. So that's a little bit weird. It turns out that this is not actually Alyssa. This is actually a recreation of Alyssa, sort of an AI. Sort of uncanny valley kind of weird recreation of Alyssa. And all of the scientists here are actually essentially just robots. Duplicate, right? Turns out when you speedrun the game, you can forget certain things like that. And of course, these duplicates are totally trustworthy and will never betray you. Oh, just kidding. They immediately betrayed you. So, I believe the story here is that Adam, once again from the future, infiltrates and turns the robots in Augusta Tower against you. So now we are headed up Augusta Tower, where at the top, Adam currently exists in his earlier form. He, in the past, turned against the humans and killed them, and so what's left is just the duplicates, which are under his control. So, motion sickness alert. For these fights on the elevators, the camera wobbles around and can cause motion sickness in some people, including. We were so shocked by these betrayals that the entire party has been given.
Top 10 video game betrayals.
Top 10 anime betrayals.
Our mission in Augusta is rotate these rooms again to form the path to the. There's also another mission that's speedrun related. That's capturing either an Orion or a Dragoon, and want one of those monsters because they have the passive ability called Adrenaline, and Adrenaline does it gives you a boost your damage when your health bar is green. So what we want to do is capture one of those monsters, level them up until they learn Adrenaline, and then infuse them Chichu. So Chichu will learn Adrenaline. Adrenaline is not necessary for the run, so if we don't get one of those monsters, then we will do the run without Adrenaline. But it is really nice to get.
It's really nice, and it makes several of the fights easier and less.
Yeah.
So now, as we mentioned earlier, this is a place where we get several different aggressive encounters, but the aggressive encounters contain Orions and Dragoons. We're gonna fight. Also, I believe it's faster to just fight them than to crux out anyway, so you have to fight them. Luckily, there can be a possible good thing of getting the Orion. For Zero's last several runs since coming back to the game, he's only gotten Adrenaline one time, where I think you're reasonably likely to get it at some point.
Yes.
So it's been pretty bad luck.
When I started, of course, it also has to do with being better at the game and able to avoid more encounters, like that one. But when I started the run, it was like almost guaranteed that I would get an Adrenaline. I don't know, but lately, either I'm just really good at dodging encounters, or I've just been unlucky.
Do you know what the chance is of getting Orion or Dragoon when it's actually?
I think Dragoon is actually pretty high. It's like 30%. And Orion is, I believe, only 5%.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that small.
Well, that's what I've heard, but it seems higher. But lately, with my lately luck, I'm now more inclined to the 5%.
You can also get multiple of either in fights. So far, we've only had one pull at the Orion. And we've had some non-aggressives, and we've avoided aggressives. We have to actually push the button in this room, so we have to fight this encounter. So that's why Zero triggered the preempt. It might have been possible to avoid, but we have to push this button. So Dragoons are actually really glass cannons. They go down really quickly. They do a lot of damage, but they go down. So no Dragoons yet. Since it's a marathon, I anticipate no Adrenaline to make the final fights much more exciting.
And why don't you expect one Scarlet as well? Which is also another thing I had today in my practice run.
Yeah, what Zero's referencing is sort of the second to last boss, or the last boss before the last series of bosses, has a drop called Scarletite, which sells for a lot of gil that we use to get Chichu's final levels. And if you only get one, you have to go out of your way to get extra items, and it loses probably, more than a minute?
Like that.
Yeah, Flanators are are pretty good. I use them for my medic and my casual, but this is a speed run. We have no time for. So yeah, these puzzles essentially allow us to unlock higher levels of Augusta Tower, and we're just trying to get to the top to defeat Odin. Right now we're leading with Sarah. Sarah is the one who has Fyra and Fyraga. Noel has Blizzara and Blizzaga, and the Orions and Dragoons are weak to fire, so we lead with Sarah because she targets the weakness of these. You may notice these guys move around a lot. If any of these Fyragas could hit the Dragoons, it would make them go down much more quickly, but they're moving around so much it's not hitting. And yeah, so when you have two Dragoons shooting at you without taking any damage, they do a ton of damage, and so miss this chance to farm. But game over in this game, you just retry, so...
Especially there, they Dragoons hit the Gahangas while I was trying to get myself buffed, which, like, Chichu has a lot more HP than Gahangas does. So when he's in Gahanga, when my monster is Gahangas, the monster is very much likely to die. And when he's at Chichu, so you want to avoid getting damage when Gahangas is party, but they just...
Yeah. When you shift between your different feral link creatures, the amount of HP they have depends. Like when Gahongas loses HP, the fraction of his HP that he loses is how much HP Chichu loses. And so the character, when the lower HP character loses HP, it does more damage to the high HP character. And these monsters, the Orions, are strong enough that it's worth actually getting faith on Sarah. And so in that short time, oh, we got the Orion drop, so we do have adrenaline for the rest. So this actually changes the way a few of the fights will be executed later on. Specifically, more potions will be used to keep Chichu in green HP, and that'll keep him doing more than... It'll keep him doing 20% more damage.
You might be right. Why would the Cirrus come here?
So that was pretty nice. Got the aggressive 2 Dragoon encounter, but managed to... That pretty much finishes up the Augusta Tower puzzle. Yeah, so now we're going to take the elevator one last time. We'll fight a Behemoth King, nausea warning, and we'll be up on the final. So these Feral Link, the Fanatical Dance that Gahongas does, this charges up between fights, and so the speedrun has routed out the best times to use these dances to make the game go as quickly as possible. And so it turns out for this guy, getting those buffs to kill him before he powers up is one of the good times to use that.
Yeah, that guarantees that you fall it correctly.
This
But
must be the heart of the
kill
system.
him before he
I know it's a machine, but
kill in.
it seems like it's almost breathing.
It's arguable if that's worth it or not.
Alyssa was telling us is
It's
true.
still a little bit
You
sketchy
and Caius should be up here
to
as
get
well.
the feral red for when we next time we need it, but
So now we have finally reached the top of the tower and ready to fight Adam. So this is a really tough and scary fight, man. You gotta kill the manipulators, and then you have to focus him down. There's a really strong chance he kills you. Oh wait, no, he just died. So you kill him one time, and then he recreates himself. I forget the exact mechanic behind this recreation, but his second, when he recreates himself, he's much stronger. And so this second phase, or the second fight, we actually use a Libra scope and kill the manipulator. He's significantly stronger, but we follow the same pattern as always. The Ravagers will stagger the manipulators, and then Chi-Chu will kill them. If you watch their health, you'll notice it goes down in chunks. Those chunks that it goes down are basically when Chi-Chu runs up and smacks his face into. So manipulators are down, and then we follow the standard pattern of chain, debuff, get faith on Sarah, and then going. Or I guess no faith now, because Chi-Chu does most of the damage anyway. Chi-Chu also, I think, did he use Bravery Feeder? Is that how he has Bravery? Yeah, so Adam gets Bravery, which powers up his attacks, but Chi-Chu has a nice little ability called Bravery Feeder that allows him to steal Bravery from an enemy that has it when he attacks. So he took away the Bravery and gave himself Bravery. We also had Adrenaline, so Chi-Chu just completely wrecks Adam right there.
Okay, my turn. See how you like this. Time for you to go away for good. Thanks to Mog, huh?
So there's an amusing mechanic here.
You saved the day.
Thank you. You did great.
You guys play rough, Kupo. The mechanic here is that when we killed him the first time, he reformed himself, and then we killed him again, and he keeps on reforming himself, unless you choose the correct choice. You can do various things, but it turns out the correct option is to scream at Hope. And when I did my first casual run through, I was like, there's no way screaming at Hope is going to be the right one. That's just dumb. And it turns out that's the right one. So I had to fight him 3 extra times just because I didn't know what the correct option was. But we just choose the correct option because it's the speedrun. And we now finally know the answer to the long wondered question, which is who would win in a fight? One Fal'Cie, responsible for the destruction of the entire population of Academia, or one Fuzzy Boy? And it turns out the Fuzzy Boy wins.
Yeah, so there's also speedrun ways. There's a little bit danger there, because you can skip the cutscene that leads to, or you can skip the live trigger that where you choose the right answer with the cutscene skip. And if you do that, it automatically chooses the wrong answer. So if you skip a cutscene one too many times, there, you'll have to fight him again.
Yeah, so if you just skip cutscenes there, you have to fight him over and over.
If you don't care about the story and just end up fighting him over again.
Yeah, so I think the story is when you scream at Hope, Hope actually can see from the past. I guess the memories get stored in an Oracle drive or something.
Yeah.
He sees the message in the Oracle drive, and it's like, oh, I guess the Proto-Fal'Cie is not the best idea, huh? So
it's not completely a random thing that you have to figure out yourself. They kind of hint on in the cutscene. Or
yeah. I don't think you get any extra Christogen points for fighting him over and over again.
So, one thing about the manipulators on Adam is actually that the manipulators are the one that drop the gold nuggets. So you just straight up killed Protophalcy out on a lot of money.
Yeah, the gold nuggets we used to buy a bunch of monster materials for Chichu in the final chapter. But if you skip on. So now that we're back in Academia 400, there's still aggressive Fal'Cie spawning. So we only got one. You can get two if you're unlucky. But we just get one. Gotta fight it really quick. And then we can take this gate. Like I mentioned earlier, when we were in Augusta Tower, we picked up a wild artifact. We're using that wild artifact now to open this gate, which will allow us to get the 5th Graviton Core. And so now we actually get to have all 5 of these Graviton Cores, and we're actually going to use them. So we've resolved the whole Adam debacle, which involved Augusta Tower and Academia, and we can move forward to Academia 4XX, which is this city, except now in the timeline where we never made Adam. And so it's the non-evil version of... But we're heading to Yasha's Massif 100 AM, which has some plot in it, but it's not relevant to finishing the story. We're just here for the Graviton Core. We're also here for the Chocobo song.
Yeah, yeah, we go. And Forest.
Don't go disappearing on us now.
Yeah. The other,
So
as I mentioned earlier, other 3 Graviton cores are
Colleagues are dying.
like you have to beat multiple areas and multiple gates and roads. Find them. Now enjoy the music.
Yeah, these wild chocobos, they consume Geishel greens, but in return they play a really nice song.
Come on, Mom.
So for some of these parts, you may wonder whether frames are dropping, but actually the game just has a hard time rendering some of the... Especially when you do those Moogle reveals, the particle effects can be taxing. So we opened the gate when we killed Adam in Augusta, and that allowed us to go now to Academia 4XX, which is Academia 400, non-evil.
It's kind of sad how the real Academia is the one with all the people turning,
Yeah.
and then fake Academia.
It's not fake, it's fixed. Although that makes me wonder, because we're going to go to Academia 500 eventually. Shouldn't 500 come after 400, not after 4XX?
Handled the Proto-Fal'Cie pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
I sort of have an idea of what happened, but I can't really explain it.
Usually the
Hunch, really.
the non-XX timelines follow each other, and the XX are like side areas. But this is like the good Academia, but it's an XX timeline, which is kind of... So now that we're here, we've resolved the Flans destroying the crystal pillar, and we've resolved the Protophalcy atom killing everyone. So we're trying to move towards a future where everybody doesn't die. And the new plan, instead of having a Protophalcy safe cocoon, is to create our own cocoon. So that's the current idea. In order to do this, they need artifacts called graviton cores. And luckily, we happen to have the exact correct number of graviton cores we need to advance this part of the plot. Purely by coincidence. So now we just, purely coincidence. So we just hand Sarah all 5 graviton cores we've been farming, and now we will be able to advance this part of the plot with Noah. We have one other little farm we have to do here, which is inside of this map, inside of the middle of the room, the hologram. There is a silver chocobo, but it's sort of a random thing how many times you have to throw Mog for it. We're just going to sit here throwing Mog over and over again until we get the silver chocobo. And first try, so that's nice. Silver chocobo is a feral link that you can add into your party. However, we are just going to give it to Chichu. So Chichu will have eaten Nekton, Orion, and Silver Chocobo. But the Silver Chocobo gives a really important ability, which is Ally KO Power Up. So we're going to let Sarah die in a few... Sorry?
Power Surge.
Power Surge, yeah, Power Surge. So Ally KO Power Surge. So when Sarah dies in a few fights, we're going to intentionally leave her with lower HP than Noel. And when she dies, she will... give Chichu a huge power up. So Chichu really is the MVP for a lot of these fights. It's really pretty brutal. Chichu eats 3 other monsters and then just lets Sarah die in order to get...
Yeah. Be a lot easier if he just... Sarah.
Right?
Found it. And...
What would Chichu get from infusing Eyes of Vetro, maybe?
I can already see. That.
If you spoil the future, do you spoil the past? So we got the mini Flan figurine. It's really important to give that mini Flan hat to Chichu. It gives him a confidence boost, so he's more confident in these.
Next fight would be basically possible without Flan figure.
Oh, so that's why I have so much trouble with it.
Yeah. Just get the Chichu, but you forget about the mini Flan figure.
Where do you actually get that from? I forget, and I never.
You get it from the same place as you get. Like it's one of the other things you can get.
I see. Yeah.
I always equip
So
it
now,
if I. Well, unless I'm.
Yeah. So now, Sarah, who is totally trustworthy, or not Sarah, sorry, Alyssa, who is totally trustworthy and would never betray us, has given us a tainted artifact that Caius gave her, and the tainted artifact sent us to the void, or split Sarah and Noel up and sent them to the void beyond, or to places outside time. So now Sarah doesn't really know what's going on, but she's running into multiple copies of Yule, trying to figure out what's going on. Or yeah, she's currently in the void beyond, and she will go somewhere else. Each of these Yules is a different person. I believe you talked to 5 or 6. 2 or 3 of them you've actually encountered. Others are ones that you do not know. One of them is one that Noel knew in his. So you'll see that it's coming up saying that this is the throne of the goddess. This is the place where lightning's been, but Etro is gone, and we don't really know. But we were sent here by Caius, and Caius shows up to try and continue his quest to stop us. Unfortunately, Caius, possessor of the Heart of Etro, who is immortal and can travel through time, is not strong enough to take down one fuzzy. And the fuzzy boy easily takes him down. And you'll notice every time you beat Caius, he has a little animation where he sort of rejuvenates himself. That's part of his immortality, where he can't die. So you beat him, but he continues to live. And in a cutscene after here, he defeats Sarah, even though you... So by defeating you, he sends you to a dream world. And that's the next part of our journey, is we're in a dream world now. So it looks like we're back in New Bodom, but we're actually in Sarah's dream. So part of this plot is trying to figure out that we're not actually in New Bodom. You'll also notice that snow is back. So this is basically Sarah's perfect world where lightning's back, snow is back, everyone's here, everyone's happy. And you run up to the dock and you talk to Lightning, and you actually have the choice to accept the dream world. And it's one of the possible paradox endings where it's like, I'm actually happy here, and you just remain here.
Who was that?
And then
Why is she trying
the
to
only
help
thing
me?
that bugs Sarah in that ending is that there's someone certain that can't remember. Because there's someone she can't remember.
Somebody is helping
Can't remember.
But she,
but no one's here.
yeah,
I wonder
just,
who it is.
I assume it's Chichu.
Probably.
Probably Chichu. Chichu is...
Keep going.
Maybe it's
But yeah.
Gahotas.
Voice. I'm sure
I mean, Gahongas was pretty good at dancing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's Nekton and she's just sad that he died.
Yeah, got eaten by
She's like, they're Silver Chocobo, Nekton, all these people eaten by Chichu.
Not gonna.
Where's the gate? There's nothing left.
But when you don't accept Lightning's offer to stay here forever, then Vanille, who is still in a crystal slumber inside the pillar below Cocoon, she saves you from the dream world, she and Fang. So they help you out of your dream world, and now you have to go save Noel, who's in his dream world. So, while your perfect world was one where you're with all your friends, everyone's happy, Noel's perfect world is 700 years after the fall of Cocoon, everyone's...
It's just not creepy at all. Especially the shadows.
Yeah. So, this is Pulse, 700 years after the
This place.
first fall of Cocoon. Cocoon has already fallen and the world is dying. Although I think this visual effect is supposed to be just because you're part of Noel's dream world. Eventually it'll clear up. But you're essentially reliving Noel's history leading up to before he met Lightning, before the starting event. So this is the first Caius before he witnessed Yul die over and over again. So this Caius is a hunter who is sort of Noel's mentor, and the way it goes is one hunter protects Yul until his apprentice becomes strong enough and defeats him. So Noel is Caius's apprentice, and they're both charged with protecting Yul.
And all these people you can kill with the Mughal reveal.
Yeah, there's all of these sort of half invisible people, and if you try and reveal them, they just die. And Yul's very happy birthday, where nobody dies, is coming up.
The coming up is one of the hardest fights of the run.
Oh yeah.
Almost guaranteed I will die, but we'll see.
You have to keep fighting it until you win, though. It's really.
Interrupted again.
Yeah, his attacks come so fast, you just get interrupted.
Phoenix down some.
Phoenix on
Now I
yourself.
got lodged again. Okay, Rig.
You can still get him with your last string if you interrupt him. Oh. Alright, we'll just retry and we'll keep going. So that is a fight which I believe you can win.
You can win, yeah.
Yeah, you can win it, but you don't have to. It turns out it's faster to just die.
You can win. It like the 160 fragments run. That's the completionist category for this game. You actually have to kill him because he counts as a separate bestiary entry, like all Caius is. So to get that bestiary entry, you have to kill him.
But when you die, Caius is just like, oh, okay, I guess you're not strong enough to take over as the Guardian of Yule. And then you just have to chase after.
I thought that if it brought you
But as people are dying off, Yule dies, and Noel becomes more and more desperate and starts traveling around the world trying to find other people, civilization, and eventually reaches the point where he's at his wit's end and he's nearly dead. But you just get to him in time, and when you get to him, the paradox appears, and this is the final Gogma. So we just saw sort of the tip of the iceberg with Gog Magog. Now we actually see what we were fighting against, and so this is the resolution of that paradox. Turns out this guy can decide to just kill you sometime, but looks like this is not going to be one of them. Sometimes he can kill you, sometimes he does 0 damage.
Yeah, like this time, like the idea of that fight is that he will debuff himself with a bunch of debuffs, then transfer all those buffs to you. But the fight doesn't last long enough for him to do that. So he just debuffs himself and dies easily. Unless he decides to stuff.
Yeah, so we just have to run back to the village where we started, but there's some encounters, and just got an unlucky one, which was not able to escape, so we had to crush.
Yeah, you usually can escape this fine, but this time there were 2 of them chasing me. Like usually I can get only 1 of them coming after me. This time there were 2, and the first one I would have been able... The first one that was chasing me, that was closer to me, I could have I would have been able to run far enough away, but there was a second one coming, and that second one passed the first one. And was too close, and I don't think he would have stopped time.
It might have, but it wasn't worth risking. When the mod clock times out, you don't have the option to retry, and those guys don't kill you very fast, so you kind of have to either just take a long time to kill them, or just wait for them to kill.
Probably would have resorted for them to kill me, but it's pretty much even which one is faster, killing them or killing me.
Yeah.
Either way, I think faster.
Yeah, exactly. And those guys, they got pretty close to catching him. However, when they get close to catching you, they swing, and when they swing, they stop. And when they stop, you can get away and escape them, so it's no problem.
And after they swing, they jump backwards, so you can get even more distance. Them. Spawning based on.
Yep. So, one crux out. It's pretty bad, but nothing you can do. So, we've got Noel, and we're heading back to the Oracle Drive, where Mog will tell us a little bit about his history, and then we'll be able to go to... so we're still in Noel's dream world, and we're going to escape this and go to the dying world 700 years after
this is
the
dying world, so
oh, this is also dying world. So the dream world is when it was dark, and now we're in the dying world. So this is just somewhere on Pulse where Noel lived, and we're going to go to New Bodom in the same time. I always get that little details confused.
We need to talk, Kubo.
Where did my sister go?
She's waiting for you.
So we're going to go to a different place in the dying world, and we will meet Lightning. The real one this time, not a dream Lightning. And she'll essentially update us on what's going on. She is at the end of time in Valhalla, battling Caius, and she needs us to help save Cocoon.
This is your village, but the time
Or
period
rather, save
is far in the future after
the artificial cocoon, which Hope is working on.
This can't be the fate the world is moving towards.
So we gave the Graviton cores to Hope in Academia 400, and he's going to use those cores to levitate the new cocoon. And it'll take about 100 years for him to do that. And so now that we've resolved all these things, we're going to go meet him in Academia 500, and that's the final dungeon. Before we do that, we have to get through this gate. So we have to go pick up an artifact, and then we'll be able to ready to head there. One other errand we have to do before we get there. We have to go to Serendipity one more time, the casino outside time. We have to get 2 more fragment skills. We have to get improved jump to help with the platforming in the last section. And we also have to get
Finally able to talk with her.
so you have Haggle, and the other one is I forget what it's called.
Oh, I forget it too.
If we pull it off,
It's
then lightning can return
right on the
Before-
tongue, but
We got the one that lets you sell things for more, and now we're going to buy the one that lets you buy things for less. So we're going to buy some items from
Bargain
I think
Hunter,
we-
maybe?
I think Bargain Hunter might be, Bargain Hunter and Haggle. Haggle are the 2. But it's just a quick stop, and then we'll head to Academia 500. So Academia 500 takes a pretty sharp increase in the level of the enemies. The random encounters are pretty strong here. Go from maybe being able to kill some of them to all of them will just... But Noel will now lead the rest of the speedrun. We got the fragment skills and we're ready to go hit the... So, in this timeline, Hope has created the new artificial cocoon, which is being levitated by the graviton cores, and all of humanity is loading up, or all the people who are on cocoon are loading up to escape the world, which would die with the collapse of the old cocoon. However, chaos is leaking out of Valhalla for some reason, and causing the reality to become distorted. And that's essentially what we're seeing with all of these rotating, weird pillars. So we have to navigate through the chaos-filled realm to get to the place where the new cocoon is being... But in simpler terms, we have to platform our way to... First, we're doing one of the last menus in the game. We are going to sell whatever items we need to get enough gil, and that will allow us to buy the final items for Chichu. Now, the way this section works is there are little cubes that you can activate that'll shift the way the platforms are rotating. And there are cactars that you can activate that operate as checkpoints. So anytime you touch a cactar and you fall off the platforms, you'll teleport to the last place you touched the cactar. This is the speedrun, so we're not going to spend too much time pressing checkpoints, so we have to not mess up. In this menu, we're now finally leveling up something besides Ravager. We're getting Sentinel on Noel. We want the ability Reprieve. Reprieve is an ability that will... Anytime Noel would take enough damage to kill him, it'll leave him with 1 HP. The final boss has an ability strong enough to kill Noel in one shot. So we are gonna get him that Reprieve ability to allow him to survive. Other than that, we're gonna level up Chichu as much as we can. We're a little bit short on Gil there, but it's fine. We should be able to make it up in the last. Yeah, these puzzles are definitely non-trivial, and in the speedrun, if you fall off, pretty much at any point it can be devastating, but there are a few places where it's easy to fall off, and it's really... So the first checkpoint is going to be actually a boss called the Pacos Twins. It's two sort of giraffe-like creatures. There are also a few encounters to worry about. For the most part, the one that you have to worry about is actually the encounter that you just got. It's called Yeomen. It's an aggressive encounter with a bunch of little dudes that zoom around and try and poke you. They just are difficult to escape, and they do a ton of damage. So if you do get the encounter and you can't get away from them, you just let them kill you pretty quick. You can also Crux out. So these two Pacos enemies are essentially like fire and ice, and you just have to kill them one at a time. They both have an ability called Split, where when you kill one and the other one's staggered, or once they reach a certain HP threshold, they will try and split into the other version with the same HP at the time they split. So the goal is to kill Pacos Amethyst, and then kill the other one before it can split. So Sarah died here, which is a bit unfortunate, but because of the Silver Chocobo infusion, now Chichu has the power surge from that, so he's gonna be doing a lot more damage. So you get less chain, but more damage.
The center cannot hold.
And yeah, easy.
That was a Pegasus Twins fight.
Yeah, that was really good. Sarah died at like a good time, so he got the power surge and then managed. Although I think you didn't want Sarah to die.
Ideally, Sarah would have died a little bit later, but that
The perfect time for her to die would be after she's done some chaining, I'm guessing, on the
on
second
the
Bacchus.
like on the last attack of the second, where he's used.
Yeah, so she died a little bit earlier, but despite that, it was still really good. So now that we beat them, we activated a single cube to shift the way the pillars rotate, and that makes us now backtrack to activate another one, and then we'll forward track. And this is just all the details needed to correctly advance the puzzle. But that was the second to last boss. We have one more normal enemy we have to fight, and then we'll come up on the last bosses once we've solved all these puzzles.
Fortunately, human don't move as fast as their counterparts Orions.
Yeah, they have like a short little period before when they spawn when they don't move at all.
There I used a little trick. After I pressed that cube, the platform I jumped onto was not supposed to rotate or stop in the area where I wanted it, where I jumped into or onto it. However, if it's facing away from you when you push it, it rotates like it stops very briefly, like there before it starts its normal cycle. Like normally it would go from right to left, but now it's briefly stopped first in the left, then at where I jumped onto it, and then on the right. And yeah, that allowed me to jump onto it. Like, you're supposed to jump onto it, then go to the other side, and then
One other thing you may notice Zero did was, oops, see you later, Mog. One other thing you may notice is that when he landed on that platform, he just stopped moving immediately. Whether an enemy spawns depends on your steps, and if an enemy spawns while you're on those steps, while you're on that platform, you're stuck there with the enemy. So this enemy spawns by the cube you need to activate, so we have to kill him. So yeah, that enemy has an attack called Rush, which can one-shot pretty much anyone in the party. So you have to kill him pretty quickly. Luckily, Rush didn't come soon enough. And that essentially clears everything that we have to worry about for this puzzle. There's one last thing, which is on one of these last platforms, there's a forced enemy spawn that is aggressive and is scary, but there's a cool little technique we can use.
There you go.
You'll also notice that there's a pretty cool, pretty scary little technique you can use here, which is where you can jump out where the platform is going to rotate underneath you, and it'll catch you. A little bit of trust fall. So once you reach this final platform, it automatically gives you a checkpoint, so you can no longer fall back off and be set back by the... So we have one last shop. We're going to buy all the items we need for Chichu. Level them up, and then we'll be ready to fight the final boss rush, which is 4 bosses in a row. I think you had the vitality boosters you can sell.
Realized I never a grimoire hat.
Who needs that? Did you buy more potions? Yeah, I didn't see it, so I can never check.
I bought them in for Pakistan.
Okay. So that grimoire hat we got just before the goblin fragment, we now are using to get double healing from.
Oh, you better get moving. Hope's cocoon is just ahead.
Say there's about 7 minutes. If I don't die.
Just don't die. Forehead.
We are a little bit ahead of us. I don't die. Maybe I'll die a couple of times too.
Just hit estimate exactly, right?
Yeah.
So the first fight is Deck Bahamut, or what is this? Chaos Bahamut? I guess you... Yeah, you have to fight him on the deck of this airship. He is out of range of Chichu, so Chichu's just going to be spamming ruins and follows a pretty similar pattern to everything else. He's immune to the debuffs, so we just have to buff ourselves. We use a Feral Link here, and it's important because you have to watch this pattern of attack because you do not want Gahongas to get hit by one of his attacks. So you sneak in the Feral Link between 2 attacks and then get back to Chichu. And then after this, you just have to, you really just have to keep Noel alive. Sarah, you want to die in order to give the power surge. Other than that, you can basically just spam potions and win. Getting some chaining in makes it a little bit faster, but other than that, you're really focusing on keeping Chichu in the green and staying alive. He has a Mega Flare, which you can use your Sentinel and Repieve to stay alive for. Next up is Deck Bahamut, Deck Caius, which is actually a really straightforward fight because he focuses down Sarah, which is not good for him because all focusing down Sarah is going to do is make Chichu super strong. So Fuzzy Boy can kill him in 5 or so attacks once he's killed Sarah. and the bravery and faith feeder playing a big role here. So now that Deck Caius is dead, we're on Beach Caius. Beach Caius has more HP and stronger attacks, and he also is not necessarily focused on Sarah. So we get him close to stagger. Once he's close to stagger, we just go into our Sentinel paradigm to try and get Sarah to provoke him, because we just want Sarah to die, just like last fight. So we do some chaining, and then we go into the Guarded Assault just to keep Sarah using provoke. Wait until he's provoked, and then we go in. So once she dies, Chi-Chu gets his power surge, and then we can kill him. Beach Caius has 2 phases. The first phase is straightforward. The second phase is also straightforward once Sarah's dead, and Chi-Chu has adrenaline, because this fuzzy boy does a lot of... And that's all there is. Who's a good fuzzy boy?
Sure. Final fight is around 2 minutes, so if I don't die. I haven't done this with adrenaline for a long time, so
Should be easier, but you get Dying Sun more likely, I guess.
yes, I am prepared.
So this is a pretty cool fight with some good music. The way the fight works is you have to kill the 2, the Garnet, and what's the other one? Bahamut?
Amber.
Yeah,
Garnet and
Amber and Garnet. They both, one of them is focuses on physical, the other one focuses on magical, but Chi-Chu has Faith Eater and Bravery Feeder, so he's able to. So you just give them whatever debuff they're weak to, and then chain and damage them. Keep yourself at high HP. Once both of these, the timer starts once the first Bahamut goes down, and you have to kill Jet Bahamut within a certain amount of time, or else the other 2 Bahamuts reappear. But this is a speed run. We kill them easily, quickly enough. So it's the same pattern. We just chain them, debuff them, keep ourselves alive with potions. Now, I mentioned earlier when we got that unicorn horn, when Amber Bahamut goes down, Jet Bahamut will use Break Curse, and Break Curse will give us a ton of buffs, or a ton of debuffs. So we use the unicorn horn to get rid of those, and then we're ready to go in on Jet Bahamut. Now for this final fight, it's the same pattern. We chain. We'll go into Malevolence and use our Feral Link once more to give everyone all the buffs. And then we'll chain, and then we'll debuff, and then we'll have Chi-Chu kill him. The damage is mapped out so that Sarah dies right after he gets staggered, right after she gives him the deprotect that he needs. So Sarah died a little bit early there, which is unfortunate.
Okay.
And yeah, that can happen. So Sarah's HP was a little bit too low, and then she died, and then things got a little...
So the dumb thing there, he did a Judgment Blade. I shifted to Sentinel, so Referee would save me, but Judgment Blade hits you twice, so the first one hit me do 1 HP, and the second hit me.
Basically, he likes the song so much, he just wanted to play it twice.
I mean, just making sure we're not getting too far ahead.
Yeah, if we're too far to schedule, the next run, they wouldn't be ready. right when this jet Bahamut goes down, there's a menu that just like shows you the battle results. When you clear that menu is when time is. So we're getting only about a minute left. So Zero's letting all 3 hits of Dark Flames hit to stop Chi-Chu from taking extra damage, because Gahonga's... This looks more like what's supposed to happen. Sarah stayed alive long enough to get the debuffs.
Last time I didn't. I did that before using the potion. Because that's what you do in Chaos Bahamut.
And now Noel's just doing his best job doing chains. We're just waiting for Chi-Chu to kill.
Fine.
But GG.
Yay! Final Fantasy 13-2. We were underestimated.
And what was the final time?
I don't know actually.
I only have your stream open.
But
yeah, now
we.
Nice. GG. We've resolved all the paradox, we've saved the day, and everyone lives happily.
Yep. Happy ending, stuff like that. I don't think we'll go to ending if the next people are ready. Yeah. Thanks for having me again. Oh yeah. Do we kill or save Caius?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think we should sell the artifact. I think we should sell the artifact. Or how much do you think the artifact would sell for?
Something like 100,000. I did the math at some point how much it would sell for, but I don't remember it anymore.
Is it enough to buy a chop?
Yes.
Even if it were for you.
Or no, I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I want to kill you.
Lightning is dead. I killed her with my own hands.
I mean, Jet Bahamut killed you. It only seems fair to kill Caius in return.
Yeah, I guess we should kill
In
Caius.
Valhalla, time does not flow as it should. Long
Can you
before
infuse him to
we
Chi-Chu?
I had already faced her. Now,
Maybe Chi-Chu would learn Auto Life.
awake.
Yeah, right?
That shall happen
Or
in your
what's
future
called Heart of Chaos, or
decided
what's the move that
Yeah.
gives
by
him
own
that?
lust.
Well, he has
I know
Chain
how
Break,
it
Body and
begins
Soul. Maybe you get to
how
pick.
it ends.
Then you
Yeah.
should know you can't provoke me. No matter how
Chain
hard
Break
I
would
try,
be pretty much
I'm not
unnecessary.
going to kill you.
Yeah, right. Body and Soul would be nice.
Right. You hate to kill anyone, don't you? Noel, born at the end of days. You understand the true value of life. But know this. You will kill me, Noel.
So I see that the chat is being a little bit indecisive. So I'm not sure if I should
Yeah, I don't know either.
kill or spare.
The moment
Let's
I
think
cease
about
to
this for a minute.
exist, You shall be released from your fate.
Should we kill or spare? No mercy or finish him. Oh whoops.
Now would be a perfect time for them to cut to the next. Once again, you fail the QuickTime event.
Oh no.
Do it.
Impressive.
It automatically gives you
Can
space.
change time. Must choose between those who die and those who live. You must bear the burden. The eternal paradox.
Yeah, I'm ready to if the next people are ready or whatever, so yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks
Christopher,
for watching.
commentating.
Thanks, Zero, for running.
Um,
He always wanted to come back.
it's really great to have 2 runs in this marathon, and
He wanted to come back here.
luck
to
on
die.
the
He
extraordinaries.
thought if
What's
he
the next
did,
game?
He could end Yule's cycle of rebirth.
Dragon's Crown Pro?
This way, all the Yules that are called back to Valhalla, they can be with him here. They don't have to return to be born again.
Damn.
He heard you. In the end, he believed what you told him.
This is a world that gives birth to infinite possibilities. But that's all there are. Possibilities. There's no death here, but no real life either.